Hi, I'm David Nolan, and I'm trying to make a video game. I have basically no idea what I'm doing, but I'm winging it and figuring it out as I go. So the last time I spoke to you, I had developed a working prototype of my game, but it wasn't super fun. The controls were a bit janky, there wasn't a lot of feedback for the player, and it was just quite awkward to use. So I've spent the last 2 weeks polishing it up, trying to make the core game loop of running around, shooting enemies, and building more defenses to hold off even more enemies, to make that loop as fun as possible. And I think I've made really good progress. The game is far from perfect, but it is a lot more fun than it was. In particular, the controls feel a lot more responsive, it feels a lot more engaging to play the game, and the player actually gets feedback from their actions now. I added some sound effects, I added some feedback from the guns onto the enemies so that they get knocked back. It feels much more like you're engaging in combat than it did before, and it feels a lot more satisfying. So I was hoping that by the time I spoke to you, I would be in a position to send the game out to some playtesters and start getting some feedback. And I did that to a degree. I had the opportunity to show the game to a couple of my friends, and they gave me some really good feedback, which I now need to go and address before I send the game out again. In general, the responses were positive, but there were some recurring themes. Firstly, it was a bit confusing what was going on. Players didn't have the time to figure things out before waves of enemies came, and they were just panicking to try and keep up rather than being able to think strategically about what they were doing. This was really interesting to me because I had felt that the game was too easy, but I now realise that it's easy for me because I know what's going on. But for new players, they have no idea what's happening, and I'm not communicating that well enough to them. So with this in mind, I'm going to make a few fairly significant changes to try and make the onboarding experience for players easier, more engaging, and get them up to speed so they can actually engage with the core game loop. So first of all, I need to build a tutorial. I'd had this in my mind, but I think the degree of specificity that the tutorial needs to have is much greater than I was expecting. I was anticipating just saying, here are the controls, go for it. But I think I need to actually walk people through building walls, destroying walls, reloading. All of these processes, they need to be concretely laid out so people understand all of the mechanics. The other big change that I'm planning to make is to remove the countdown between rounds. When I was initially building the game, I thought that having a short interval between the waves would keep the intensity up. But what I've seen from watching people play is that they want to take some time to get to grips with the building system. And that's valid. The building system is a core part of the game and is part of its USP. So I need to be able to let people experience that properly. Players want to take the time in between rounds to think about where to build walls and turrets, and also how to build them. They don't get an opportunity at the moment to figure that out. So my hope is that by removing the countdown between rounds and letting players start the next wave when they're ready, this will allow them to think strategically about how to place their structures and bring out more of that building element. I'm not sure if this is the right decision, but I think it's worth trying. Having tried it the way that it is, I think it's worth showing players with this new system and seeing how they respond. So that's my current plan. I'm going to keep refining the prototype. I'm going to add a substantial tutorial. I'm going to remove the round countdown. I'm going to fix a few other bits and pieces, and then hopefully I'll be in a position that I can send this out and actually get some more extensive player feedback. And I will talk to you when I have done that.